Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the 19th episode of the Next Man Up podcast. I normally have an intro prepared, but we got a little overzealous this time and just started. So if you haven't seen the podcast before, I don't have my normal notes pulled up, but I think at this point I can get a handle on it. Uh, Basically, we're just three normal guys that like to talk sports. We mainly focus on football, basketball, and hockey. Uh, and the other two guys on the crew, Rich, Adam, say hello.
What's up?
So
How's it going?
it's going all right.
Long time no
Um,
see, guys. It's been a
Yeah,
week.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's been a week, but what was weird about last week is, and we'll get to it later, is there's actually a bunch of news going on during the pods, and like I think that's been kind of challenging where we've got
Hmm.
just sports that are on during the podcast, so it just
Right.
feels like an eternity between podcasts because like even by the end of the podcast, there's new sports news that we haven't covered. So some of the stuff we're talking about is from like 20 minutes after the last podcast. So
Right.
but that will soon change as we kind of start to wind down both the NHL and NBA playoffs, and that's probably where we're gonna start things.
And
The NBA playoffs not really winding down in the sense that the Hawks and the Clippers kind of making these playoff series that we didn't really think would be much of a fight, kind of a fight. Paul George especially leading a heroic win on the road down 3-1 for the Clippers last night. I think he had 41 points, like 16 rebounds and like 6 or 7 assists and a few steals or
mhm.
something. Just played phenomenally, really changing that narrative without Kawhi Leonard alongside him, as sort of a playoff choker. He's coming up big.
Yeah.
And similarly, Ty Lue, his coach, kind of changing the narrative that he only won a championship because he coached LeBron. So,
Sure.
guys, what do you think? Thoughts on Paul George?
Yeah,
You sold on him or no?
I think Paul George is probably the most consistent player in NBA history. I mean, the guy never, has ups and downs. It's always just, what he's going to give you every night,
Oh wow.
100%.
I'm just happy that there are ups now because it used to be like if he was consistent, he was
Yeah.
consistently bad. Like he either played average or really bad. Now
He
at
was
least
Sure.
like at least the highs are highs. The lows are still there, but at least there are high highs to offset them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good with like the Pacers. I know he came in as more of like a defensive like basketball guy, and then since he's been in
A
the league,
basketball guy.
he has definitely worked on his like scoring a lot better. But it seems like his scoring is just very like streaky. Like when he's on,
Mhm.
he is completely on. But if he's off by like just a little bit, it is like awfully like bad when it comes to like the shooting and like scoring.
Yeah. Well, I think that injury really changed him that happened a few years ago. He broke his leg in like an Olympic scrimmage. I actually remember watching that. One of the nastiest sports moments I've ever personally witnessed as it was happening. But ever since that leg break, I just don't think he attacks the rim the same in kind of his Clippers and Thunder years. But that's one of the things that's interesting, and I can remember a specific play last night in the game where he drove to the rim, kind of went up at a weird angle and hit the deck hard and slid like 10 feet under the baseline. And I don't remember seeing those types of plays from Paul George the last 3 or so years. So that's really good to see. I think some of the reason he's getting the hang of it again when it matters is because he's attacking more. I think like Rich said, that jump shot comes and goes, but I think the reason he had such ice cold games is that he just didn't attack. His game is. I'd love to see the statistics on it, but I imagine for like compared to other like elite small forwards, he probably takes less shots in the paint than a lot of other guys, and I just don't think he has like a Kevin Durant jump shooting touch to warrant that.
Sure. Yeah, for
Yeah.
anyone that doesn't understand sarcasm, I was being sarcastic to open this segment. I know there's people out there that don't understand it. So,
You
yeah,
don't understand this pod, then.
that. Yeah,
Neither do we.
I guess if you don't understand sarcasm, you probably wouldn't be watching us because that's like, we're like 50% sports and like 50% sarcasm. and making fun of Rich.
Are we though? We're. I would say making fun of Rich is probably the other 50%.
Yeah,
I don't know
true.
why that's like a real thing, but whatever.
That we make fun of you?
Uh,
Basically, the only reason we started this podcast.
yeah, pretty much. I think we
Sports are
decided.
just a guise for the cyberbullying that we laid down.
I think
on
we
them.
decided.
If I would have known that, I would have never like agreed to do this.
We decided let's do a podcast about making fun of Rich, and then we're like, okay, but what are we gonna base it on? I guess sports. We all watch sports, so that'll be a good way to do that.
Oh,
Speaking of talking trash, though, one of the best trash talkers in this year's NBA playoffs, and he's backed it up quite a bit, including an impressive. We were talking about Paul George. Now we'll head over to the Eastern Conference and talk about Trae Young and the Hawks that pulled that game one upset. But since then, they've been getting trounced by the Bucks. In typical NBA fashion, it's been revealed that Trae Young now has a bone bruise of some kind on his foot, considering not playing tonight. Kendrick Perkins commented that he has nothing to prove. The Hawks are overachieving and he should sit out. Guys, I kind of have mixed feelings here. I do agree that the Hawks are overachieving. We talked about that on the last podcast, but is sitting out the right move? Or do you just kind of go down with the ship? I don't think anyone expects them to beat the Hawks or even steal another game in this series, honestly. I think people are surprised they won a game at all. I had them losing in like 5, but I didn't think they'd win game 1.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'll win another game in this series. So to Kendrick Perkins' point, it does make sense. In a year riddled with injury, is it really worth putting your star player that everything else sort of revolves around out there in a losing effort? Or do you just kind of bow out and, hope that he's okay for next season? Is the injury even real? I mean, like a bone bruise, like what is that even? Some of these injuries that, I hate to sound like a classic old head, and we do this on the pod all the time, especially me and Adam, but like, what the hell are some of these injuries? Like Kyrie Irving missing games with a sprained ankle.
Yeah.
Like Trae Young missing for like a bone bruise. Like you're in the Eastern Conference Finals. This might be as far as you ever get.
True.
In your entire career. There's a lot of guys like that never make it out of the conference finals. I actually think, didn't Chris Paul just make his first conference finals this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he's never 17. He's 35. He's never been to the finals.
Right.
I don't think Trae Young will go to the finals this year, but there are guys that never make it to the conference finals.
Well, I just say with a bone bruise,
I think it's crazy to see.
It's definitely painful, especially for the foot, because your foot is like putting all of your weight and everything on that like foot. So if there's something like wrong with your like foot or ankle, especially with basketball, everything has to be quick. There's no like half-assing it, or you're just gonna get like burned and blew by. I mean, for example, is James Harden. He played well, not gonna lie, like he played well, but like he was, not moving that quick, not moving that fast. He was more of just
still helped them though,
distributing the ball. I mean, I would say just in general on how young he is, I think he should be able to play through it. You have an off season to take care of that. If it is a bone bruise, that will heal in like 2 to 4 weeks.
If that.
Maybe 6, if you want to get really, really technical on how bad it could be, because bones take longer to heal than other muscles and tendons and things like that. But just for his like age, like, I mean, you have to play.
Yeah.
If you could go out there and play, you should be like playing, especially at the age that he's at. And just to your point, Austin, like he might never make it back here, so might as well maybe try to sneak another game, make it a little longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Milwaukee too. They've had some pretty off nights and off games as well. If the Hawks can take advantage of those, then you never know what happens.
Well, yeah, that's funny. To Rich's point, it's a 2-1 series. So like the last game was a beatdown, but it only counts for one game. They're only down 2-1. So to Rich's point, then they're at home too tonight. So like to Rich's point, they only need like one good game, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Trae Young stepping up. Other guys might do it, but Trae Young being out there as like a decoy and being able to facilitate or spot up and shoot or do literally anything for them that he can, even if he comes off the fucking bench, like, give them literally anything. The Bucks have been so wildly inconsistent that it's quite possible you tie this series. And then from there, like, that's got to be huge for your morale going into next season. Because like I said, I don't think they have a chance to win this series, especially not now. But go out on top. They've had a triumphant, excellent season for their own locker room and their own legacy of Trae Young and stuff. I just think it's important that he goes out there and he plays at least, partial minutes and just finishes the season strong. Because, like, you don't want a season like this marked with overachieving to be, kind of end on the note of, Trae Young kind of cowered to the Bucks and hid from them and, didn't play through a mild injury. Like, you don't want that to be the narrative, because that's the kind of stuff that will carry over to next year more than, like Rich said, a 2 to 4 week recovery with a bone bruise will.
Yeah. I don't think he'll play tonight. I really don't think he will
either.
And I think because of that,
playoffs has sucked ass. So why would it not just continue?
I think they get smoked by at least 20 points without him.
Actually, maybe I'll put that bet in right now.
And
shout
that's
out. So go ahead.
And that's the thing, though. It's like, if they get smoked tonight and go down 3-1, does he feel like it's worth playing at that point, when it's like they're definitely not going to come back from a 3-1
if you want to sit
that they're outmatched against?
Right. If you want to sit down 3-1, I'd be like, the series is probably over. You're injured. It's a lofty goal. But down 2-1, like, come on, you got to play one game, give it a shot to tie it. If you fail to tie it, then I think you can probably get away with sitting.
But in general, I mean, the thing about a bruise is it's painful, but it's not like it's an injury that, has a history of worsening or, it's like a sprained ankle. If you put in a sprained ankle, you can make it pretty bad. It could get much worse, but a bruise is mostly just pain. It's not like you're going to make it worse by playing on it. So I think a bruise is an injury you definitely should be able to play with, but I don't think he'll play tonight. I think they'll get smoked, and then we'll see if he plays when they're down 3-1, because there's definitely no way that they overcome that in this series versus a team that they're outmatched against. And I don't really see the Hawks ever, like, unless they get lucky with like a draft pick or like a trade or something, I don't really see them ever getting back to the conference finals within Trae Young's career, as good as he's playing. But it's like, you're going to have to deal with teams like the Nets, who are eventually going to be healthy probably next year even. And the Bucks, I think, will still be good for a while. I mean, like, honestly, as good as the Hawks are playing this postseason, I think they kind of like lucked into this spot a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I don't think
I think all 4 of these teams remaining lucked into it.
So I don't really see I mean, unless there's crazy circumstances or something, but I don't really see them getting back here again.
I agree with you. They won't be back here for 3 or 4 years, in my opinion.
Until people start retiring and whatnot.
Massive overachieving season. Yeah, I think you'd have to see the Nets' big 3 start to retire. You'd have to see things get broken up in Philadelphia, even though they were able to beat that team. If that team retools with like a better complement to Joel Embiid, I think they're better than the Hawks. The Miami Heat had an off season. They went to the finals. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in the East. I agree with Adam. So this is sort of your last chance. And Trae Young's young enough to where I don't think it's going to derail his career if he plays through a bone bruise. But, switching gears to another sport and a player who's the opposite of young, some news coming by way of The Shop with LeBron James's barbershop show. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's better than a lot of, talking, shows related to sports, especially this one where I can't even think of, a word for what it is that we do. That's how bad I am on this podcast. But anyway, on the show The Shop, Tom Brady mentioned that there was a team that passed on him, used some expletives to kind of describe that there was a team that was not very good.
He dropped the F-bomb.
Yeah, I mean, who does it matter? We don't have any sponsors. He said fuck. I think he called the person a fuck, which is the best use of the word fuck, honestly. But anyway, gosh, I'm really spiraling here, getting distracted. But anyway, he was saying that there was some teams or a team that passed on him this offseason in lieu of a quarterback who was, quote, a fuck, a pretty trash quarterback. But according to this article that just came out on NFL.com, one of the two teams above the rest of the pack that were probably the team he was referring to and wisely didn't name were the Raiders and our very own Chicago Bears. You guys have any thoughts on that? Do you think there's any chance that it was the Bears?
I think there's a good chance. Yeah,
It's 100% the Bears.
I think there's a good
it's the
chance.
Raiders, honestly. I'll say this: I think the Bears are too incompetent to even schedule a meeting with Tom Brady.
Yeah, there was never any reports of them meeting with him, and then we signed Nick Foles pretty like quickly. That
Off
one
season.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's a chance that it could be, but I think I actually don't think so, but I think it very well could be. If I had to make a guess, I would say it probably wasn't the Bears, but he also is probably just looking around the league in general and is like, really a team like the Bears didn't even call me in for an interview. Like he's probably, still, that's probably on his mind
Salty.
as well. I would think too, another team that was listed as likely that it could have been it could be the 49ers because we know Tom Brady's history with Jimmy G. And he could have been trying to throw a little bit more shade at Jimmy G under the table. So I wouldn't doubt that
why
either.
He would feel so comfortable calling him a fuck too, because if that's a former teammate, I didn't watch the actual clip, and I'll have to watch it. So a lot of it's his tone. But if it was kind of a joking, that fuck, like it could easily have been a former teammate because
right,
it's two former teammates talking about each other. But I think what was interesting is that they did say in this article from NFL.com that we've got in our document here that you guys at home cannot see is he's saying that hinting at Team X was probably a team that didn't make the playoffs in 2019, which would leave just Chicago and Las Vegas.
49ers didn't make the playoffs either.
Yeah.
They didn't? Okay.
No, because of all their injuries. Obviously, they were picked to be one of the better teams in the league last year. They didn't make the playoffs because they had just so many injuries.
That is true. I actually had.
Didn't we squeak into the playoffs?
Yeah, the Bears made the playoffs.
Yeah.
We lost to the Saints in the first round.
Yeah,
so if it was a team that didn't make the playoffs, then the Bears are
then that's
not
a
in the running.
We should report NFL.com, blow their asses up.
Yeah, the Bears even should have won that playoff game if Wims didn't drop that wide open pass in the end zone.
Oh, wait. No,
we could have gone on to win that game. So not only did we make the playoffs, we had a chance to actually win a playoff game this last year.
At least be more competitive down the stretch. Yeah. That's for sure.
But I don't know if they specifically said it was a team that didn't make the playoffs, then I'm leaning more and more towards that it was probably the 49ers. And like you said, he was throwing shade. The reason why I would say 49ers over Raiders is I can see Tom Brady throwing more shade at a former teammate than like a guy like Derek Carr. Who
it doesn't seem like him. Yeah, and I don't think he would think Derek Carr's a fuck. I think Tom Brady is the type of player that would see that Derek Carr at least does a couple things well as a quarterback.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, whereas Jimmy G, I could see as a former teammate, he would be like, this dude's a fuck. But I could also see it being Mitch Trubisky because Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah. But he might have even just been alluding to, the league as a whole, that there was teams that didn't even, kick the tires on him type of thing. And that, he's still Tom Brady and they went on with subpar quarterbacks.
They make it sound like it was one specific team. And this is a story of one specific.
Also on the list too, like the Rams, like Jared Goff, he just got traded. So the Rams don't even like Jared Goff. Brady also saw him in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that could be
he
it
knows
too.
And he didn't
how well he could play.
So I could see him shitting on him too.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
It could really be anybody. It's hard to say, but I just thought that was funny.
It wasn't Drew Brees.
No, definitely.
Exactly. But anyway, the other interesting thing that came out of that meeting or, show, so to speak, meeting in the shop, which was actually an episode without LeBron James, but apparently there was comments that LeBron had made either in a past episode or off air to Maverick Carter, his co-producer of that show. And Maverick Carter was saying that he thought Tom Brady was the best athlete of all time, but LeBron James had said that in order to be the best athlete, you have to play both ends of the floor. I think it was a comment, something to that effect. Is that correct,
Mhm.
Adam?
Yeah. From what I heard was LeBron pretty much said that there's the goats in each sport, and then there's the sports goat per se. That's like, oh, he's not only the greatest of his sport, but he's the greatest, you know, sports athlete of all time. And LeBron pretty much came out and said, well, that can never be a football player because they don't play both sides of the field. They only play offense or they only play defense. While like, hockey or basketball, they have to play both sides. And so it would have to be a sport that you play both sides like that to be considered the GOAT of all GOATs, was essentially the comments that I heard.
I do not like that at all because, like, yes, it is pretty difficult to go from like offense to defense really quick, especially like if you get the ball stolen or like you totally brick a shot. Like you can't like harp on that. You have to immediately switch, play defense, get back in position and things like
Yeah.
that. So
But by the same token, in the defense of that belief, I mean, you have the opportunity to impact the game on both ends of the floor. So it's even harder to rely on the teammates. You're even more reliant on the teammates around you. So it's easier
Sure.
to impact the game as an individual athlete in those sports where you play both ends of the
And
floor.
I think, defining the actual what you're trying to say is important too, because I don't think saying he's the greatest athlete of all time is the same thing of saying he's the GOAT of all GOATs either, because
I agree. I was going to
like
bring that up too.
like in general, if some consider Tom Brady the GOAT of all GOATs, or Michael Jordan even, that's because they're winners. They find ways to win, competitive nature and stuff. But that's not to say, like, I would never ever consider Tom Brady even, the top half of athletes in the league. I mean, I've seen the guy
Right.
run. So, but not taking anything away from him, I don't think he's even in the top half for the greatest athlete of all time. But greatest winner of all time, he certainly deserves to be in the conversation
Yeah,
for that
no
topic.
doubt. I mean, there's like dominating your own sport to an effect that you did so in a way that's greater than the GOAT of another sport's dominance of their sport. Someone like Wayne Gretzky would maybe
Yeah.
come to mind, where you could argue Wayne Gretzky is the GOAT of all GOATs because he dominated his sport so much more than like a Michael Jordan dominated his fellow competition. There were players that are almost as good as Michael Jordan. We're talking about LeBron James is almost as good as Michael Jordan. I don't agree, but I'll entertain the discussion because he's been also great. But you can't even really entertain the discussion when it comes to like a guy like Wayne Gretzky from a
Right.
record standpoint. That there's actually a statistic where Wayne Gretzky has more assists than the second highest player has points, which is goals plus assists.
Right.
He has more. He could have never scored a goal in his career, and he would still be the all-time points leader. So I think, like to Adam's point, that's one conversation, and
Yeah.
I think the other conversation is, if you were to take this guy and just who's an athlete is athlete. Like if it was, let's say this is like an Olympic type of scenario where like
Mhm.
you've got to play all the sports. Who's the guy you would want to play a ton of sports? Then you would say, hey, I might want this,
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, or I might want LeBron James, or
DK
I
Metcalf
might
comes to
want,
mind.
yeah, Vince Carter, Michael Jordan, Wilt
Yep.
Chamberlain, who was a track athlete, or how about the guys who played football and baseball, like Bo Jackson and stuff. Like that's
Deion Sanders.
Deion
Yeah.
Sanders. Like those guys are like athletes. Like you could
Right.
have put any ball in their hand growing up, and they might have been able to go pro at that sport.
I think Deion Sanders
because they're
could
just
possibly
good
be the
at.
greatest athlete of all time. I mean, he's the
Yeah.
only player that's won a Super Bowl and
a
a
World Series.
World
And I think what
Series.
LeBron James was saying was probably the first of the two topics that we kind of touched on, which is, that, you have to dominate both ends of the floor to be able to say that you dominated your sport. And I think that's a somewhat of a fair argument. Like, I think
I don't
me
like
personally,
that.
like if we're talking about the person that dominated their sport the most, like in the four major sports, I think it probably is Wayne Gretzky. Although I would also like to throw out there, Babe Ruth, I believe, pitched and batted at an elite level. I mean, that was over 100 years ago. And I don't know that any of that would translate to the modern game, but I think that's important to note that like that's unheard of. We're just now in 2021 starting to see that with another player whose name escapes me, but I think he plays for the Angels. He's like a Japanese player. He's like a power hitter and a pitcher, and he's like for at least the early going of the season has been arguably the best player in the league at both aspects of the game, both pitching and batting. So like doing stuff like that is unbelievable. So to LeBron James' point, I kind of agree that like, you know, I don't think an MLB pitcher who has like a .047 like batting average can be considered like the most dominant player in their sport. Or I don't think a hockey goalie, even if they're excellent, can be considered a dominant player in their sport because unless he's going to take it across the blue line and score a goal and win 1-0, you know, I just don't think that you're dominating the game.
I think
so in LeBron's defense, I think like Michael Jordan or like, in my opinion, Wayne Gretzky or somebody would probably be the best player.
I think in general, the argument is just a stupid one, to be honest, because
it's all just barbershop talk, which is what that show's about.
I mean, to be honest, every sport is different and every, you know, sport has different, you know, values on different positions. And football is one where you need most players on your team need to be, you know, good. It's more of a team game than most games. Like in basketball, you can win games by having one good player.
Oh, yeah.
In football, that doesn't happen. I mean, if you have the best quarterback in the league, you know, he's not going to score points if the offensive line sucks, if he has no one to pass it to, if he, you know. So, I mean, I could see that argument of saying like, well, a quarterback can't be the greatest, you know, GOAT of all time because he needs all these other guys around him to be good. But I think that's why the argument is flawed in the first place, is because every sport is different. And
you still need teammates.
I guess the only way you could look at it is the way that you kind of brought it up, is the player that dominated their sport more than any other player. And it would probably, have to, in my mind, it would also probably have to be Wayne Gretzky. Michael Jordan would probably be up there on that list as well.
Yeah, Michael Jordan's good too, but I think he Wayne Gretzky's an interesting one because he has like the statistical milestones and excellence of like Wilt Chamberlain, but he has like the winningness of like a Wayne Gretzky. Because I think the knock on Wilt Chamberlain and the reason that he's not considered the GOAT is that guy lost a lot. Like he had teammates.
Wilt Chamberlain was
the game
also
individually, but he wasn't a very winning player. Like he didn't. There's a lot of guys who have more, you know, led a team to a championship more than he did. I think
Wilt Chamberlain was also a man amongst boys out there. He was like a foot taller than anybody else on the core. They had no goaltending rules on defense. He just swatted balls away.
I don't know if they had goaltending yet.
At
the
start of his career, there was no
defense.
Defensive or offensive goaltending. So he dominated the game enough where they had to put rules in place, but he just had. I mean, he was just a physical specimen at the time.
I will tell you this:
there was nobody as tall or as strong as he was in the league. So, I mean, I don't know if I would say that's like pure athleticism or if that's just physical. Dominance.
I will say this. I think in terms of the other discussion, I think I probably would put Wilt Chamberlain as the best athlete in terms of like you got to be able to play multiple sports. You got to be able to do multiple things. I think that was something that was less common back in the time that he played. But I mean, I don't know that a lot of people know this, but you guys should look this up. Wilt Chamberlain, after he retired from basketball, he was playing professional volleyball in his late 40s and dominating. He can bench like, I think, close to like 600, 700 pounds or something like absurd like that. He was a state champion, like sprinter in like high school and college, like probably could have been an Olympic athlete as a sprinter and high jumper. So like, as far as like athletes go, I mean, that's like a 7'1" guy who is fast, could jump high as hell, strong as hell, long wingspan, strength, touch around the basket, shooting the ball. He actually had like a jump shot out to like 15 feet. So I agree that he was ahead of his time, and that's some of the reason he dominated. But there's no question in my mind that even if Wilt Chamberlain came up in the 80s or something, that he would probably be a top 5 basketball player.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's the reason why he's never considered 1, 2, or even 3 is because he dominated just overall physically. And to your point, Austin, could you imagine lining up Wilt Chamberlain at like tight end in the NFL.
Oh yeah, he'd
He's
be
like
unstoppable.
2 feet taller than like the
And he
average
was
competition.
fast as hell. He could definitely run those routes. Like,
and then even in blocking, I mean, he was strong as shit too. He could probably drive, some of the better
Especially during that time.
too.
Yeah,
You could see he could box too. I think there was talks of him wanting to fight Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Plus, I mean,
There's so many crazy Will Chamberlain stories. Unfortunately, he was the biggest exaggerator of his abilities, so it's hard to understand, hard to fathom what's real and what's not. But
I mean, he once
a lot
claimed
of this shit's real.
He had once claimed to like had sex with over 100,000 women or something like that.
Something absurd like that.
So I mean, I think it was literally 100,000, where it was like like at the time that he made his claim, it ended up being like over 3 women a day, like since the age of 18. Like it was insane, which was probably alludes to your exaggeration. But I mean, I don't know the guy personally. So
one of the most interesting what ifs in sport. I wonder if his personality was slightly different, if we would cover him differently, because I think because he exaggerated his own abilities, it made people not believe stuff that he really did accomplish happened, or it not hold as much weight.
Sure.
But I don't know. Those would be my 2 votes for those 2 conversations. I think Wayne Gretzky's dominated his sport more than anybody. But I think Wilt Chamberlain I would maybe take as the guy that I would trust to be good at most sports. Like if he just had, like, in his prime, you had to play as many sports as you could and see how well you do, I think Wilt Chamberlain could do more sports than any other athlete at a high level.
I would want to go Deion Sanders, just because, like, in general, like how you're saying with Wilt, like Wilt is just like, he's all talk. He's making stuff up. Like, you say he benches 600. Who was there to see that? Did he really do that? Did he not? That's the biggest thing with Wilt, is like you only saw him on the basketball court with a lot of that kind of thing. And during that time, that's kind of the same argument I have with with football with Jim Brown. Like, Jim Brown was like the biggest guy on the field.
Yeah.
And that was faster than everyone on the field. Like, that's just he took advantage of like a lot of smaller people around them during that time. I'm not taking anything away from Wilt or Jim Brown. They were both amazing. They're both Hall of Fame, things like that. But I would have to go Deion Sanders, because he has proved that he could do it at a high level in more than one sport and actually be able to win. Like, Deion Sanders was a good defensive baseball player. He was a solid hitter. So it's not like with baseball, he was just like a scrub where like he's just out there because of his name. Like,
I think he actually won a
played
Golden Glove.
Yeah. So like I would have to go Deion Sanders.
A beast. That's a totally acceptable answer.
And talk about a football player that impacted the game on multiple sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
he played up at receiver.
He's known for his defense, obviously, as a corner. But yeah, he lined up at receiver oftentimes. He was one of the best kick returners in the league when he was there. The guy did pretty much anything, and that's why I think he at least deserves to be in the conversation.
Absolutely. But, it would be weird if he wasn't in the conversation. Bo Jackson, I think, too. Yeah, those are like guys that come to mind for that. Although, I mean, I think LeBron James is an interesting one too. A lot of people talk about him being able to play tight end and stuff like that.
But he's too big. He's too big of a. I don't know if I should say the word pussy, but he's the biggest pussy in the NBA.
True,
dude. He would be hurt every other play in the NFL.
No, you can't say that, because
I can.
Well, the NFL doesn't reward that. I think a lot of the reason he pretends to be hurt is because the NBA rewards that.
Yes, thank you, Austin. Like, if he grew up playing football,
I don't think
he would have had that mentality.
I'll say this: I don't even think grew up playing football. I think if he went to play football, right now, I agree with Rich. I think he would just act differently because it's not rewarded.
If he grew up,
if he could flop and draw flags, he would. But the NFL doesn't work like that. You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm hurt."
But the thing is, he's not used to now for his entire life, his entire career, he hasn't been used to taking a hit and getting back up, or taking a hit and staying on a route, or taking a hit and doing anything other than falling on the floor.
That's true.
He can pop up. I think it's
at his age. At his age now, no way.
You don't realize. You don't
10
realize
years
how
ago?
it feels getting hit by a truck
Yeah.
until you
And
take
I
a
thought
hit
that's
from an
kinda
Aaron
how we're
Donald or something
Yeah.
like that.
I thought
No.
that's how we're discussing this conversation, though, is when you say now, I just heard someone talking about him as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but like, yeah, if a 25-year-old LeBron James went to play football right now, I think he'd pop up most times.
I think he'd be
Yeah.
good. I think he'd be not great.
Yeah.
I think
I
he
don't
would
know.
be not a top
Yeah.
10 tight end in the league.
I
He's so
think
smart, though, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other
Man,
thing.
I
He's
don't know.
He's basketball smart.
But he's like
It's a completely
photographing
different.
memory
It's a
smart,
completely
though.
different.
No, I'm serious
thing.
though. Like when you hear about like quarterbacks who can memorize the whole playbook and shit, like or players that like LeBron James has that like gear. Like
Yeah,
I
but
think
as
he
a
has
tight end, you
photographic memory.
don't.
Yeah, it doesn't matter as
I'm
much.
just
as a tight
saying
end.
though,
Tight
like
end,
I think
yeah.
that's important to remember too. That like the dude would learn the playbook super quickly, and I think
I
he'd
would-
be able to
sure.
recognize reads and stuff. I think he'd learn football really quickly too.
I would say if
Not taking that away
even
from any NFL
even in his
players, but, like,
athletic
he's a smart
prime,
player.
I think he would be in the region of 10 to 20th best tight end in the league.
Oh,
at best.
I hard disagree. I think he'd easily be a top 5 tight end in his prime.
No.
All right,
I
we're
think
gonna
only
end this
recently-
topic. We're
I
gonna be
think
on this
only
topic
recently
all
the tight end
day.
position's even become like this elite skilled position. I think LeBron James would have been arguably the best tight end if he came in. When he was 25, it was what, 2010?
No, I'm saying if he was in his athletic prime and he was playing with the tight ends today, I think he wouldn't be a top 10 tight end.
Oh, today?
Yeah.
Man,
Maybe.
I don't know.
I think he'd be fringe top 5, but if he were to
That's
play
so
10
hard.
years ago in his
I would
prime,
put him
think
at
he
like
would be
8 or
probably
I
the
would put him
top
at
2 or
8
3
or
tight ends in
9.
the league.
I put him
think
at 8
he's-
or 9 because you don't know
I think
anything.
he's still higher
He's
than that.
definitely like he's definitely athletic enough to do it. Because look at
Okay.
all the tight ends that like were like all-star like
I don't think he'd
basketball
have
players
with that
from
position.
like college,
Okay.
never played football
I'll just
until they hit the NFL.
I don't want to talk
Like,
about this all night,
yeah.
but I'll leave it on
Okay.
this note. I've seen Nate Robinson knock that motherfucker down. What do you think a guy like Aaron Donald would do? He would never get back up.
That's within the rules of basketball.
No. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think
in the
he'll adjust. I don't
rules.
think he would adjust. I mean, if he, like I said, if he grew up playing football all of his life,
He's
maybe.
fake soft, dude.
I think he's
Allen
actually soft.
Iverson played football. He was 6 feet, like 165
Yeah,
pounds.
and
Like,
Allen
I get it.
Iverson
You get
used to drive
clocked
to the
and stuff
net
and you wear
and
pads.
get his ass
but-
beat and not
right.
lay
but-
on the ground for 10, 20
But
minutes.
LeBron flings himself around and over exaggerates how hard he's being hit because he gets rewarded in the
Right.
NBA with free throws.
But that's
LeBron
why
is
he's
so
a great player.
strong.
But
If
that's
he
why
didn't
he's a
do
great
that,
player.
he would never get calls.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
if he
thing
didn't
with
get
basketball.
calls, he
The
wouldn't
reason
even
players
be.
do
He
that,
wouldn't even be one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
right? Which is why he flops, because everybody has to get calls. Same with Shaq. Shaq used to have to over exaggerate contact because he would get the shit hit out of him, but he was so fucking strong people couldn't even tell. Same thing with LeBron. He's the strongest wing player in basketball. If he didn't flop or show, I'm not going to defend it. It's right. It's trash. It's bad to watch. I don't enjoy it. It's bad for the sport. But if he didn't over accentuate contact once in a while, he wouldn't get the calls because he's so fucking strong. He would just bowl through it like it was.
But that's the thing. LeBron's greatness is centered on him being an extremely smart player. I don't think his type of smart would work in the NFL as well.
I think
because his smartness is based on acting. In the NFL,
I don't think
acting
it is
doesn't benefit you.
based on acting. I'll send you some videos
if you're going to
after
be
this.
playing football, you're going to come in with a totally different mindset.
And I think his intelligence stems from his ability to read defenses, his ability to see the floor. He has some of the best like peripheral vision and like just overall court vision and understanding of the game that we've ever seen.
I've played.
I think the dude would learn a NFL play. I think if you asked him to right now at 36, if you gave him a month to learn like an NFL playbook, I think he'd learn the entire.
Okay, that's not saying much as a tight end. Their plays are pretty basic in general.
No, I mean like the whole team's plays. Like I think he would be like I think he would know like every plays, even the ones he's not involved.
But that doesn't
in,
also doesn't make you a great player.
But it's you just said that he wasn't intelligent, and I'm just
I didn't say that he wasn't intelligent.
Conversation you're saying that his type of intelligence in basketball wouldn't translate to football. I think it absolutely would, because if you see the guy talk and how he can memorize a play that happened in the fourth quarter of like a finals game like 10 years ago and be able to regurgitate it, and then they put it alongside an actual clip of what happened. Like the dude studies film and like has a impeccable memory that I think would translate to any sport mentally. But that's a conversation for another day.
I've played high school basketball and high school
I think would be interesting.
Football, and I don't think it's as easy for a basketball player to just come and play football as it is for a football player to just go and play basketball. Basketball is more of an athletic sport than football. Football, you need a lot of different things to really be a good player.
Basketball requires intelligence.
Like you don't see like NFL guys or like football guys going and playing basketball, but we've seen basketball guys go and play tight end and go and play tight end well. So like I think LeBron would be able to play the tight end position very well because you have that different mindset. If you know you're going to be getting hit and railed and things like that, you're going to be a little bit more ready and prepared.
He spends $1 million on his body. You don't think he'd spend another $1 million to adjust his training in his prime so that he would be able to take hits?
It's different to know you're going to take a hit and then to actually take that hit and be okay with it, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you could tell me that Aaron Donald will come and like lay me out, and I could be like, "Yeah, I'm ready for it," but I'm still like, it's still gonna hurt like a motherfucker.
But you're not 280. It wouldn't hurt at all if you were 270.
It's not true.
I beg to differ.
It would hurt, but like he's built for it. He just, like Rich said, it's just a matter of changing his mentality, which I think would come.
I don't think so.
I'm not saying it would come naturally, but like to act like just somebody who's that.
We could sit here all night. We're moving on. Adam, what's going on in the NHL playoffs here?
Yeah, so we're down to the Stanley Cup Finals, and none of the teams Austin picked at any point during the season are there. So I think Austin was just picking the teams that would be eliminated next. And Rich, none of the teams you picked are in there either. So
I thought I said
to be fair, you're acting like we picked all the wrong teams. You didn't pick any of the right teams either.
I picked the Lightning to win it all, like week 2 of the season.
Okay, you've been wrong about every other team but the Lightning, which is the safest pick ever. No, it's not. They should win every year.
They had so many injuries early. They
to their stacked team. Oh
yeah. Lord. But I
so
picked the Lightning to win it all. And they're up game 1. They've won game 1 of the series, and I think it's gonna be maybe a 5-game, 6-game series at best. They kind of showed Montreal, the Canadiens, that they don't even really belong in the playoffs, let alone in the finals. Yeah,
Adam, they went all the way to the finals. They belong in the playoffs, and they belong in the finals. They've made it all the way there.
They've gotten there off good goaltending, and I won't argue with that. If you have a good goaltender, that definitely matters a lot in the playoffs. But the Lightning are just too good for them. I think it'll be
team for sure, but that doesn't mean that they don't belong there. Like one of their rookies has been on fire too, hasn't he? Like on the Canadiens, I forget the guy's name, but like he's been having an insane
they've been playing well, but
the offense has played decent too. I don't know. It's a team effort getting there. You can ride but
I don't really think it's even going to be much of a series. I would have much rather seen the Lightning and the Golden Knights. I think that would have been a cooler series to see. But yeah, the Golden Knights, kind of fell apart there at the end. I think they brought it to a game 7, and they lost that in overtime, I believe. So they got really close, and that would have been my pick from. I think it was like week 2 or 3 that we were calling finals, and I had the Lightning versus the Golden Knights.
Winning it all, but then I thought the Knights really would have won it all. But oh
well.
I still think I sort of agree with you. If the Knights had made it through, I think they could have beat the.
I think that would have been a really entertaining series. I don't think this is going to be an entertaining series, but I mean I've been wrong about the Canadiens all playoffs, so we'll see.
True.
But I don't see it going past game 5.
I think 5 is probably a correct prediction. Like you said, I think the goaltending will carry them to at least.
I think they'll probably
he'll have a freak game at one point, but that team is too loaded.
It'll probably be like a game 2 or a game 3 that they'll take it. So and that's about it, I think. But yeah, so I would say the NHL playoffs is coming to a quick end, and I guess we'll look forward to next season for that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, but great season to the Canadiens, man. I always love that about hockey when a team just has no business going deep and they do anyway.
Yeah.
I always think that's really cool.
They've proved me wrong a lot. Every time, pretty much every week I've come on here and shit on them since like midway through the season. Yeah. and here they are in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think just to be dicks, I guess. I don't know.
So
Yeah, just to show that we don't watch as much hockey as we should with the Hawks sucking. So they're just
That
burning
is
us,
true.
making us look like we don't know what we're talking about, which has been true for the most part. At least
Yeah.
Hey, my NBA picks are doing good for the finals, baby. Suns and Milwaukee.
Well, those were the two
that's
most
all due
obvious
to injuries,
picks.
bro.
What?
Oh my gosh,
Those
they're
were the
really
two
not that
most obvious?
picks. No,
Are you kidding?
I agree with Rich.
Oh,
Those aren't
that's
very
some
obvious picks, but those are
Again,
like,
people that don't understand sarcasm, apparently Rich is one of them.
Oh man, gotta call
I
you
can't
out
see
on
your
that
face
one.
right now because it's off my screen, so I couldn't tell if you're being sarcastic.
All right. So speaking of playoffs, though, how about we talk about all the teams in the NBA that didn't make the playoffs with the NBA lottery, which I still hate the lottery system. That's so dumb, but
it's trash, yeah, and it's rigged usually most years.
Yeah.
Do you know this is the Pistons' first #1 pick?
How is that possible? They have sucked for so long.
No, it's not their first ever, but it's their first #1 pick since 1970.
Holy shit.
Again, they have been trash for
because it's rigged. Like
that makes no sense.
Right. It's because you'll see teams no offense, like the Bulls, their odds of getting the #1 pick weren't that high, but it's funny how we somehow get the #1 pick and it's a Chicago native and we're able to get them like this.
Yeah.
It's sometimes just made to create these storylines, like LeBron James being the #1 pick of the Cavs. Like, I would love someone to go through and do kind of a year by year look at the team statistically most likely to win, but the lottery helps a certain team get it. There's a scandal about the Knicks getting it in the 80s to get Patrick Ewing and it being an envelope stuck to the side of the thing so that the commissioner knew which one to pick, and he kind of rifled past some other envelopes to grab that one because he knew it was the right one. So I mean, it's a rigged system. It's totally flawed. But I'm super happy to see the Pistons get it because, like Rich said, they've sucked for years. They've never really built through the draft. They've never had a great #1 pick. They had Grant Hill at #3 in the 90s, and he got hurt. They've never really
he was good.
Had an easy no-brainer #1 pick.
Yeah.
What pick was Isaiah Thomas?
I think it'll be interesting, definitely.
Yeah. Also, from looking at the order, I'm also shocked too that the Thunder only have one pick in the top 16, which blows my mind because I feel like they have all the picks ever from all the trades that they've made. They have an absurd amount of #1 picks, and apparently none of them are in the top.
Well, they trade their players to good teams. That's they trade off their talent to teams that are trying to make a deep playoff run and stuff.
Did they include their picks in the Kemba Walker trade? Is that why? I'm trying to figure out where their picks went.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Just looking at the list, I know the Thunder, that's what always gets talked about is how many picks do the Thunder have in the first round for the next couple years. And to have one pick in the top 16, what were the point of all those trades then?
Oh, because
accumulating what?
They're picks for the upcoming drafts too. So I got I want to see all the picks they have.
Yeah. Also, the Bulls had
they're not so much #1 picks all for one draft. Rich, they're they have a #1 pick in every upcoming draft till 2025 or something like that. In addition to them just being bad and also getting a pick. So I guess in theory, like you said, they should probably have 2 picks this year, but I'm sure they included one in a trade. But I wish there was a better breakdown of this because it is kind of confusing.
Yeah, NBA's website. Can you get your shit together? Because this is awful trying to figure out what the hell's going on with
Thunder,
this.
A complete guide to the franchise's future NBA draft picks. Let's check this out.
I tried to, even right after the draft, or after the lottery, I guess, I tried to go on there and see what the order would be.
18
literally
first round
on NBA's website, all it was a bunch of reposts of tweets from other teams saying, we got the blank pick, we got this pick. I'm like, how do they not just have an order of the picks? The NBA or the NFL draft, what the order is, leading up to the Super Bowl and everything. Well, I mean, obviously there's not a lottery or anything, but like how did like right after the lottery, they not go on and just post the order? Because I had a hard time even finding what the order would be. And I know the Bulls had like a 20% chance to like maintain their pick, because if it was 7 or higher, they would have maintained their pick because it was protected from the Magic, and we got the 8th pick again, and we lost that pick.
This is so confusing. They broke the draft, I think. Like I think what it was is that because do they have any picks that were in the lottery or no?
No, I don't think so.
So that's what's confusing, is they should have been bad enough this season to have their own actual 2021 pick, and then they should have had another pick from one of the trades that they've had. But I think they turned around and flipped it for Kemba Walker. Let's see what the Kemba Walker trade is. Did they give up 2 first-round picks for Kemba Walker? Because that would be fucking absurd if they did. But it would explain why it seems like they're missing a pick.
Yeah, they have 16 and 18. I just finally found the order.
Boston sending all-star point guard Kemba Walker in the 16th pick in this year's draft. Yeah, but why are they so low? Did they just get screwed by the odds? Because they weren't even close to making the playoffs.
Yeah.
How did they land at 16 or 18 as their actual pick that they own?
Yeah. No. They don't have a pick. They have 3. I'm sorry. Oklahoma's pick is 6. The Boston pick is 16.
Oh, yeah, then 6.
And then the Miami, Clippers, Philly, and Phoenix trade is 18.
So, no, that sounds right then. So we just went off on a tangent for nothing.
Yeah. I don't know. I still feel like they should have more, though.
Okay,
no,
Rich.
because they're for the next 7 years. So that's actually kind of a lot of picks for one draft.
Oh, whatever.
And they have a lot of those picks are second-round picks, too.
Yeah.
So they probably have more picks in the second round. So they probably have like 5 draft picks.
The second-round NBA players turn out amazing.
Is that sarcasm? We're doing.
That was sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I
It
can
looks
tell.
like Adam couldn't pick that.
Did you get my sarcasm of asking was that sarcasm?
No, I couldn't figure it out at all. Did you get that
Guys,
sarcasm?
Sarcasm is such an elite level of intelligence. I think it makes you good enough to play tight end in the NFL.
I don't think so.
Oh my god.
I think the most sarcastic person would be one of the worst tight ends in the league. Just by definition.
Interesting.
Oh, so that's why Adam can never play tight end. Okay.
Yeah, it's because I don't have a tight end.
I think you have to be smart though. Too many loose ends. You can't play tight end.
Yeah. No, I played next to the tight end.
Now we got puns in the podcast too. But anyway, guys, are we bringing back our
2-minute drill?
fan favorite segment?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh man, is it me this time?
It is.
Yes.
Because we were
100%.
I mean, we were thinking like,
see if I can get one in 20 episodes of this podcast.
We were thinking who's the most likely to fail, and we're like, oh, it's Austin. So let's do that.
I'm just gonna get all of my talking done now so that I don't speak and just say yes, because that's how you win.
Yeah, apparently,
yes.
Rich.
No, agree with everything.
We have to ask like 0 yes/no questions apparently when it's Rich. So you can't just say yes, no, random team, Mets, mascot.
You're like, which of these 4 teams is going to win and why? And he'll be like, yes.
Yeah. Yellow.
Hey.
Yes. All right.
All right.
You're a lot.
Rich, are you? I'll ask. Rich, are you timing, or do you want me?
Yes, I got the 2-minute timer up.
Yo, are you actually gonna tell me at increments? Because I help you guys a lot. I've noticed. Like,
I do that every single time.
Yeah.
A minute. Okay, good.
Every time. Okay.
So as soon as I'm done reading the first question,
I know how to do
start
this.
The timer.
Okay.
For those of you who have not heard the segment, Rich will start the timer as soon as I'm done.
There you go.
Reading the first question. Austin, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm nervous.
All right. Austin, what NBA team surprised you the most this season in either a good or a bad way?
Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, the Phoenix Suns for sure. I thought that team was a total fraud. I thought adding Chris Paul wasn't enough to make them a playoff team, and here they are probably going to the finals. Suns. Definitely.
All right. What NHL team surprised you the most this season in either a good or a bad way?
How about the Montreal Canadiens, man? Barely making the playoffs, going to go to the finals. Similar thing. had, I believe, the same number of points as the Hawks, and they were barely made the playoffs, and they're in the finals.
Yeah.
So, Canadians.
That's a gimme. What sports has the best overall athletes?
Best overall athletes in a sport?
Yep.
I gotta say it's probably football, honestly, because you gotta have strength, speed, quickness, verticality. Like you gotta have it all. I'll say football of the four major sports.
Yep. What is the best band to ever play?
Best band to ever
Yep.
play music? The Beatles, without a doubt. I mean, you got Paul McCartney, John Lennon, basically invented the structure of the modern rock band. Absolutely the Beatles. Even
All
though
right.
one of the first bands to write their own songs.
1 minute left.
Who should be the number one pick in fantasy football this year?
Number one pick. Let's go Christian McCaffrey just for fun. I'm not really sure if that's correct or not, but I mean, the dude's a beast of a running back. Had some injuries and stuff. I think he'll be back to his normal self, and I think he'll be atop the list of fantasy picks.
Sure.
Yeah.
What team in any sport has the best jerseys?
Oh man, can it be current or past?
Any?
Yeah. I think the Boston Celtics jerseys are actually the best. They're simple, they're timeless, they've rarely ever changed, and I think they look excellent in my opinion. I don't really know how to argue a matter of artistic.
15 seconds.
Anyway, next one.
That's it. You actually did it.
Austin got it done.
I finally did it.
I thought the band one might throw you off.
No, that was easy, dude.
I thought the jersey one was going to throw him off a lot more. Like trying to think about all the sports.
It should have, but I just played cop out and I just picked like a classic staple of a jersey. But no, like the coolest jerseys ever. I'll say this:
Chargers baby blue, man.
Weird
that
one.
Baby blue jersey.
I think like
so
the
good.
2000s era Orlando Magic jerseys. If you Google like 2002 Orlando Magic road jersey, I thought those were really cool. They look way cooler from further away.
I feel like the jersey that
have
everyone
like stars on them, like faintly, and like just kind of like this shiny, glossy. But I don't know, they're kind of interesting.
I feel like the jerseys that everyone either really liked or really hated is like the Seahawks when they went to that like neon green and blue, where they like really brightened the green in their uniforms and stuff. I feel like a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's like the coolest," and there are some people like, "No, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen."
If you look too closely at them, they're really stupid. But I think like the 2002 Orlando Magic jerseys are maybe the most underrated jersey of all time. But these are a perfect example of like you'd either love them or hate them, and I feel like a lot of people probably hated them.
I actually really do like the not just picking the hometown team, but I actually really like the Bulls uniforms, the black and red. I like
actually
the black and red with the pinstripes are some cool ones. Yeah.
Speaking of the Magic, I kind of like their jerseys back in the 90s too.
Those are cool. Yeah.
I enjoyed those as well.
Magic have had some cool jerseys over the years.
Yeah.
Not recently, funny.
Well, that's how they get their fans because their basketball team ain't that great.
That's true, man. They gotta have cool jerseys. That Walt Disney effect, like, you know, you could sell it at a display cart in Disney World. It's probably a pretty cool jersey.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah.
Yep.
Until next week.
Till next week. Enjoy your week.
Peace.
Any people that watch this, and we're out.
All right, later.
Nice.